Hi, welcome to Shooting the Shit. My name is Betty Reed. I will be your host, and today's guest is Taylor Robinson.
Hi,
Hi,
happy to be here.
good. Why don't you tell us what you do?
Oh, yeah. I do a lot. I've been working in music for a really, really long time. For about a decade, maybe a little more. I was a session drummer. So I played for artists for tours and records and did a lot of touring and a lot of recording. And then um, I guess kind of right before COVID, I started doing artist management because I was getting kind of sick of being on the road all the time. And I did that for a couple years. Really enjoyed a lot of it. Took some stuff from it that I felt like was useful and just sort of like my regular music career. And then, but ultimately realized that I didn't want to do that. You know, not no knock on people who do that and love that. It's just it wasn't for me. Um, so I did artist management for a couple of years, and then maybe like about a year before COVID, got into production. I wanted to get back into like the creative end of music, and but I was in LA and I was doing that whole thing. So we took like a year off, and I had a roommate who was like really phenomenal recording engineer, and we had a pretty bonkers studio at the house, and so I started going in on that. And so that's the long answer. The short answer is these days I just work in studio. Sometimes I'm playing drums. Most of the time I'm making records for people or doing like sync music or whatever. So kind of jack of all trades all over the place. Yeah.
Wearing, as I like to say, all the hats of
Wearing lots of hats.
the
Yeah.
industry.
Yep.
What do you think over the years was probably your favorite experience out of doing all of those things?
My favorite experience in music. Whoa. Um, I mean, there's highlights, like, right. There's like stuff that stands out more than others. There was some touring gigs that were really cool. Places I always wanted to play. I got to go play Red Rocks. That was like fucking amazing. Like there was a few festivals that were really really cool. I think the thing about specifically like the sort of touring portion of my career that was really fun was just like the entire thing of it, like the either like living out of a tour bus for months and months on end with your friends is always really fun, and like getting to do 4 or 5 shows a week that were usually at least big, sometimes sold out. That was always like really fun. Yeah, as far as like my favorite thing recording music, it's like whatever I did that day. Like whatever I'm working on is the thing I'm the most excited about. Maybe like 10% of it, I listen to it like 2 weeks later and I think it's any good. Most of it, and I think this is true of most producers that I talk to, like will be gassed about something. Like, this is the coolest thing I've ever made. And then you're like, all right, I'm sick of this song. I've been working on it for 3 days. I got to like chill out. And then you come back to it and you're like, this is actually awful. And I don't want to ever open this session again. But
I
yeah.
feel like you have to have a fresh mind with it, right? That's one of the things with music in I think in a lot of creative things, like whether it's writing or and it doesn't have to be music too. I feel like even authors and other things like that, you have to whatever you create and you're so stoked on, you have to come back to it. You have to like let it sit there, let it simmer, let it get out of your brain and come back to it with a clean brain and be
Yeah.
like then I feel like you really get okay, this is shit or this is really good.
Yeah. I do a lot of writes nowadays where like, it'll be like a few writers in a room and like we'll try and get something by the end of the day. And then maybe we'll have like a rap session on it and have like one more. And I've gotten used to doing that because it's just kind of the thing people do in Nashville. But like, I like relish any opportunity to take fucking. Can I say fucking?
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah.
Great. I take any opportunity to take 4 months on a song. You know what I mean? Like just sit with it, pick it up, do a little, put it back down. And what you get when you do that is you get stuff that's really interesting, and you put a little bit more of yourself into it. You know what I mean? There's a time and a place for both. I think it's really efficient to be able to do stuff that's like, all right, this song is due in 2 weeks,
Yeah.
so we need to finish so that it can get mixed, so that it can get whatever. But yeah, I like both. But as often as I can, especially if I'm writing something for an artist, right? I won't I won't put it in the like file of stuff I'm gonna shop to people for a while. Like I'll sit with something and like a lot of times I'll record it, I'll like finish a production and then just be like, I don't like the chorus. I'm
Yeah.
gonna like come back to this in a couple weeks and just, delete that whole section and try a few different things, try a few different choruses on something, try a few different melodies on something, and keep tinkering until stuff is perfect. But you don't always get the luxury of doing that. But when I do, it's like fucking awesome.
Yeah. I feel like there's always with those kind of songs, like something in it is a golden nugget and you're like, this needs to be kept. Everything else needs to be scrapped around it.
Yeah.
And if you're going to have something that's that beautiful that you're like, this is key. This is what I need. Then everything around it just can't be like a bunch of mush. Like you're like, this needs to be as beautiful around it as it is what you love about it.
Well, that's what's really cool about songwriting, right? Like sometimes you write a bridge and you're like, this bridge is so much better than everything else in this song. I got to write a chorus that's good enough to like, you have one section that you're like, all right, this is objectively the best part of the song. How do I bring everything else up to fit that? And that's how songs kind of climb this ladder of becoming really good is, you get a section that's just, for whatever reason, really inspired, and a guitar part sounds really good, or like the groove in it is really nice for that one little section, and then you're like, okay, well, let's go back and make everything as good as this. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So
it's fun because we actually are kind of working on that a little bit. We did like a little bit of a session with one of my songs that I'm working on where I think we both agreed, love the chorus. I'm so obsessed with this chorus and I can't wait to see where the song goes, but the verses were just so lacking.
Yeah.
They were, and I felt it too when I was making it, was these just kind of almost seem like throwaway choruses, and they're not good enough for not choruses, verses. Yeah. And they're not good enough for how good I think that this chorus is. And even the bridge, like I love the bridge too. There's nothing I want to change about the bridge, but so I've now just been basically word vomiting like pages of stuff that, and then like I'll like highlight or underline like, okay, this is a good line. Now I'm kind of trying to work towards a better melody as well. And that's the thing. It's not just the lyrics. The melody has to be just as good. And just as dynamic as the chorus is going to be. So it's always
or
like
better.
Oh yeah.
If
I could make it better. Yeah. And then because I want this to be, I would love this to be just like, not just a golden nugget in the song. I want the whole song to be the gold, like a golden plate.
Yeah, songwriting's hard. It's so funny. It's like we live in this world where I feel like music has become just so commodified, and like everything sounds good. Like there's not as much value in music as an art form. There's less value in music as an art form, I feel like, than there's ever been, just because people's attention span, TikTok. Like I have like a much younger little brother and sister. And I heard my little sister say something about a song recently that like blew my mind. She was like, oh yeah, I like that sound. And I was like, what? What do you mean sound? It's a song. And she was like, if you're growing up on TikTok, you're referring to the 15-second clips of things as sounds. And I'm like,
yep.
So that like blew my mind. I don't want to get into all that, but it's like, it's dark. But I hope that people appreciate how difficult it is to write a great song.
Full song.
Just or even just anything. Like I just think people have a pretty good understanding that making movies is hard, right? That it's like you got to go through this whole process of pitching it and staffing the movie, and then like shooting it and making it color corrected and edited really well and directed really. Like people have a good concept of like making movies is difficult. And I think over the last 10 years, as people have sort of become like bedroom producers, and you hear this sort of ethos of like such and such song was made on a laptop or whatever,
or made on an iPhone.
Yeah, people use Steve Lacy as an example of like whatever, they made this gold record on their phone. It's like, yeah, all the parts Steve Lacy put, like you go make a song as good as Dark Red. Yeah, he made it on his phone. You try. It is really, really hard to make stuff that's good.
And there was a process to getting there too. It's not like one day, he never worked on music ever in his life and he just was like, I have an idea, and just made it on his phone. It was just like, it was all of a sudden. No, I mean, this was a journey of someone's life that just happened to stick and be as amazing as it was. And that's why
Mhm.
I also wanted to like start this podcast. For I think that people need to realize too how many moving parts, how many cogs are in this industry, big, small, everything. And you need every single one
Yeah.
to make that clock, to make the music industry clock tick.
It's one of those things where it's kind of like I heard this Steve Martin quote really recently. He was being interviewed, and he was essentially saying, people ask me all the time, like, how do you make it in showbiz? How do you make it in show business? And he was saying, well, people don't want to hear my answer, because my answer, they want some series of steps or like some sort of cogs that you have to keep balanced, uh, which you do have to do, and those things are real. But the thing that he said that nobody wants to hear, which is so true, is just be undeniably great. I think that is not touched on enough. I think people are always looking for formulas. People are always looking for ways to gain an edge as an artist. And, like you said, I've worn a million hats, from being the guy sort of like holding down drums to being in a management position for artists to being a producer. All three of those involve dealing with an artist with a lot of care, um, and trying your best to pull the best out of them, that like creating an environment where they feel safe, being like artistically fertile.
Mm-hmm.
And I firmly believe that, yes, you have to understand branding, and you have to understand, there's all that shit. And I think it's really pragmatic if we go into all that stuff.
Mm-hmm.
But I do want to reiterate that, like, the North Star you always should follow in any creative endeavor is just to be making the best stuff you possibly can. And that at the end of the day, that is the through line of all the artists that were successful. And I think that gets overlooked a lot when people say, well, this person signed with this producer, or this person signed with this record label, or this person did this, or Chapel Roan's visual identity informs her brand. And if you take away all the interesting stuff that she's doing visually, she's less of an artist.
Mm-hmm.
No, that girl sings like a
Oh
motherfucker,
my
and
gosh.
she writes incredible songs.
Yep.
That for some reason, I'm sitting as a male, right? I'm a male, and I'm listening to a song to her mom about moving to LA and like working. And this is sort of vague, like maybe she's working at a strip club, maybe it's just like a club she likes to go to, like who knows what
Yeah,
Pink
yeah.
Pony Club is about. That song has nothing to do with me, and it breaks my heart, and I 100% understand it. So don't tell me it's just about the makeup. It's not just about the makeup. You can put on the makeup and not tell that story. If you want to talk about branding, right, I've always thought of it like, as an artist, how do you get to that? How do you figure out, well, what's my big story? It's like, who am I and what do I like? Like how do you dilute all these things about yourself? Because it's hard to think about yourself. It's hard to brand yourself, especially like as an individual. This is why people hire PR teams. This is why people like have labels and companies that help them form a visual identity or
Yep.
a musical identity, right? So how do you take this arc rather of your life and make it into something that people want to pay attention to? It's really difficult to do unless you're a fucking narcissist. Like, it's really difficult to sit down and like,
Yeah.
how do I make my stuff matter? Do I even want to? Well, yeah, that's a difficult thing to kind of navigate around. And you get into this weird minutia of, you're like, this doesn't feel good to like think about my life in this way, you know? And so the North Star you can always drive to is like, be undeniably great.
I
Sorry,
have
I
to
started
say,
preaching there for a
no,
second.
that was great.
I had a coffee and then I had tequila, so we're on for one.
Yeah. No, I think that was fabulous. And I think, like, I fully agree. And as an artist who is not a narcissistic, who's the opposite, I've talked about this before, is I actually almost feel super uncomfortable, but I know it's part of the job and I'm totally willing to do it and, just kind of put that aside. But I do feel uncomfortable when I'm like, hey, look at me. Like, you have to come see me. No, you're going to love this. Like, I'm fantastic. I've put this spiel on before. Like,
Yeah, it's really hard to do.
you're just like, oh, well, I feel like when I go at it, I'm more just like, hey, I think I think you'll really like this. You should maybe check me out. If it's not an inconvenience to you, which is just not the way to do it. I mean, sadly, it can't be like that. We have to be somewhat narcissistic and be like, no, you're gonna love this. No, just take a moment out of your day and come look at me and come see what I have to show you, to offer you.
Yep. I think it's
Me.
really, really difficult. I think it's difficult in different ways for men and for women.
Mhm.
Well, in the way that I think it's harder for women, fucking always, you know. Um, but yeah, I mean, I think as an artist, if you can just take a breath and think about how much you love singing or playing guitar or playing piano or whatever it is that you're doing. The most comfortable I am doing anything is playing drums, because that's what I started doing when I was like 3 years old. And I have stratospheric level confidence on that instrument. And I sit down and I don't ask anyone to pay attention. I'm just dancing, you know? And that, of course, is the thing that people, you know, if I'm doing that, people are always just like, dude, that was so great. It's like, I don't care.
Yeah.
That was for me, you know?
And I feel like that's what people
And for you.
resonate with. Yeah, but people
But like,
resonate with that when they see
I'm
you
just,
enjoying it, when
yeah,
they see how much joy it brings you, it brings them joy too.
I'm aware of that. And like, you know, I want to be clear about when I say I don't care. There's a part of me that has to put up a wall between the stage and the crowd, or between, you know, whatever. Like, I just have to be, it's like meditation, or like I'll hear people talk about, it's like channeling something past yourself. You're just trying to get into this sort of flow state. And I think the more you can do that as a writer, as a producer, as an artist, as a singer, as a cook, as a romantic partner, you're doing it right in life,
Yeah.
you know.
When did you start drumming?
I was like 3. I started, well, my
Oh,
dad was a drummer, so like I don't really, you know, it was really, really young. Like, I started messing around on my dad's drum set when I was like a year old. There's like some old footage of me playing drums from when I was really young, but I started taking lessons when I was 3. And it was pretty basic stuff, just like at that point I couldn't even really touch the pedals, so it was all like snare drum stuff.
yeah.
And then did it through, you know, like middle school and then high school. Did concert band and all state and jazz bands, and then got into drumline, and I was in this drumline in high school that was like pretty serious, and we did like WGI, and then yeah, like got into Berkeley and went for drums, and just, you know, it was funny. I've had this conversation a fair amount recently with like a few of my friends, where we're all in our early 30s and kind of trying to figure out what this sort of chapter of our lives looks like. And I feel like the being a producer thing, you know, I'm a few years past it at this point, but like, that was a weird transition for me to just kind of put down the thing everybody knew me for, the thing I was objectively the best at, and go swing in a different sport and try not to Michael Jordan myself playing baseball, you know?
Yeah, I
It's
feel like
like,
that's going from basketball to football.
yeah, not to say I was the Michael Jordan of drums, but like, you know what I
Yeah,
mean?
yeah, yeah.
Be very
No,
clear.
I
It was the thing where I had just like the most confidence in, you know what I mean?
Mhm.
Uh, and
When did you make that transition?
slowly, like I started, I don't know, like yeah, it's vague, because it's like I don't know when the first time I got Logic was. Maybe I was like 18, you know, like I got Logic in Ableton and it was like making stuff. But as far as like, I'm gonna do this professionally and I'm gonna learn how it all works and I'm gonna start building a studio and like that whole thing, I don't know, maybe like 6 years ago, something like that. And then got like really serious about it during COVID. So
Yeah.
whatever that is, like 4 years.
Yeah. Oh my God, 4 years. I feel like time's passing in such a weird way. It feels like it's
Yeah.
going really fast. Well, 5 years. We're
Yeah, dude.
oh my God. Yeah, that's crazy.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I graduated Berkeley in 2018, and I basically moved like straight here. Did
Yep.
you didn't move straight to Nashville, right? You moved to LA and
New
then
York.
came
New
New
York
York.
for a long time, and then I was in LA for a few years, and then
So you hit the triangle
I did the triangle.
of music.
Yeah, I moved to New York because it was just the thing everybody was doing. I moved there in honestly, it might have been because I didn't finish Berkeley. I was one of those guys that fucking dropped out. I regret that. Seemed like the thing to do at the time.
Everyone's doing
Um,
it. I mean,
yeah,
no.
everybody's doing it. Must be right.
Yeah.
Uh, so I dropped out like my junior year, moved to New York City. I had like a really cool touring gig at the time, and I was like, fucking hot shit. I don't need this. Stupid. Finish college, especially if you're already in the hole that amount of money. Don't leave before they give you the meaningless but still
Very.
very real paper at the end of it. So I moved to New York. I was like living there, touring, playing around town a little bit, but I tried to like not get. New York's a funny scene. It's like if you've got a cool touring gig and you can live in New York and like do that thing, like that's cool. But if you're in New York and doing the like jazz club thing of just like playing in small clubs in New York for like $100 a night, like trying to double down, play two. It's kind of like the equivalent to Nashville has this like there's guys I know like my buddy Bowen who's fucking phenomenal. Like he'll eventually get some bonkers country gig because he's so fucking good at drums. But he goes and he plays like 3 or 4 sets a night on Broadway and he makes good money because he hustles. I always think that like if you're going to be an artist, creating art is the job. You can do these little off ramps of one of my off ramps right now is making like sync music, like making music for commercials that's admittedly a little vapid. You don't want it to be like too good because it's got to sell shoes or whatever the fuck. But I'll always come back to, I don't know. It's just like, I really think that it's so important to make your fucking art.
Yeah.
Go play on Broadway and or playing weddings, do what you got to do, pay the bills. There's
Right.
nothing wrong with that. But please, for the love of God, carve out time to make your art because you're the only one who can do it.
Hey, music lovers. This is Betty Reed, your host for Shooting the Shit, a podcast to help you navigate the music industry. Don't forget to rate, review, and subscribe to help the podcast grow. And thanks for listening to me and my guest, Shoot the Shit.
Who's the audience? Who do you think is watching this? What do you think is the most useful thing?
I think when I specifically first started making this podcast, I was thinking the audience would be people who were starting out in the industry and to get knowledge, but without like having it kind of shoved down their throat, almost like reading it out of a book, right? And like, I feel like, at least for me, I don't really learn that way. I feel like I learn from other people's experience a lot and, to hear like stories and stuff. And I feel like that sits better, at least for me, in my head and like sinks in more. That's a great way to avoid that, or, kind of learn without being taught almost, if that makes any sense, just through people's through people's experiences or people's advice. And that's why I've had so many different types of people in this industry on, and I want to get even more, even a makeup artist who does makeup for artists. Like, what's your experience with that and why that is important for everyone in the end, to like, someone who builds home studios that we had, or somebody that produces, somebody that the songwriters, like every aspect. And then anybody else who just finds it interesting, I guess, and just likes to hear people kind of chat about music stuff. If you were to tell your younger self a lot of what you know now, what would you say as like as a precaution?
As a precaution. Well, I'm hesitant with that. Like I mentioned earlier, I have a little brother and sister. So I think about this a lot in terms of like, what advice is good advice? And what advice will you give to someone that will actually be a disservice? This is my favorite line out of Dune is, when is a gift not a gift? Like, you want people to make mistakes. But I think maybe a better version of that question is like, if I had it to do over again, like what would if I was 18, what would I tell myself to do? I think like, or to make it more vague, if you're just starting out as a creative person, what do you follow? First of all, don't underestimate how difficult it is and how much work you have to put in. I had this incredible band director through middle school and high school, this guy, Troy Jones, who like changed my life, like truly more than any other person besides maybe my mom. And he said this thing that has stuck with me for years that in any given moment, you're either getting better or worse at your instrument. And the whole thing of this was basically he was saying, if you have extra time and this matters to you, practice. So I started when I was maybe like 11 through like 17. I did 4 hours a day on drums every day religiously. If I missed a day, I would do an extra hour for the 4 days after that to make up for it. I was a fucking psycho. So by the time I got into Berkeley, I was really good at drums.
Yeah.
Right. And I was perfectly positioned to be like, and like I had already done a lot of like live performing and shit, which a lot of people hadn't. Maybe they'd been in their room all the time, but I was also like going out and playing. I started playing in bars when I was like 13 or 14, and I had gigs every week. You know, that was my job in high school. That was like, I don't want to go work and like, as long as I can keep doing these like gigs, I don't have to go like get a job at McDonald's or Subway or whatever. So I'm going to keep playing drums. So by the time I got into Berkeley, I was perfectly, it's like, I'm basically saying a version of, what's that, the idiom of like, proper preparation prevents piss poor performance.
Never heard that, but I
Basically,
like it.
or the other version of it you hear is like, luck is preparation meeting opportunity, you know? Don't underestimate how much time you need to put in to be great at something. So always be practicing, always be doing the thing. I think not enough people acknowledge that. I think people, to come back to this sort of, the internet, I think has given, you can always look up a YouTube video that's like 20 things you should be doing in 2025 to make your music stand out,
right,
or whatever. There's a million of those things.
Yeah.
I come back, be undeniably great. How do you do that? Do your thing as much as humanly possible. There's this old idea of the 10,000 hours principle.
That's what I was just thinking that. What was it? The 10,000, 100,000, something amount of hours.
It takes, 10,000 hours to be an expert at something. It's obviously bullshit, but it's a nice thought process, and it's definitely a good thing to aim for.
It's a little bit of a motivator too when you're like, oh, should I practice? Yes, go practice. If you have that time, go practice.
Can't tell you enough how much, like, you know, if you're a singer and you're not waking up every day and doing vocal exercises, you're fucking up. Yeah. You know?
Which I'm guilty of for sure. But then I'm like,
everybody,
yeah. I mean, you definitely have those slips here and there.
Yeah. So practicing is like super important. You know, and then also like pragmatic things, again, through the lens of music. If I was really young, consume art. Consume visual art, music, movies. Spend time finding painters you love and get inspired by that. Spend time reading as much as you can. Consume as much of the human. You've never had more access. You don't have to go to a fucking library anymore. You don't have to rent movies at Blockbuster. You can just consume art. And that's my favorite fucking thing in the world to do. And it inspires me. If I'm not feeling good about, if I just like my body feels off and I've got a session that I got to do, or I got something I need to finish, I will go to the Frist and I will stare at good visual art, and I will come home and I will make something cool, because standing in front of some fucking masterpiece or something that, you know, the best thing an artist made in their career, standing in front of that.
Something that makes you think.
Something that makes you feel.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so consume as much art as possible, work as hard as you can. And I don't think this is necessarily just a thing about music. I think this is good in life in general, but do not ever, ever, ever let somebody tell you who you are or what kind of art you're supposed to make. Ever. Fuck those people.
Yeah.
Fuck those people. Don't let a manager tell you that, you know, and like, this is a fine line of, you know, when it's the wrong thing and when it's the right thing. Sometimes people, I get advice on, I just got a thing yesterday. I sent out a song and they were like, yeah, I think the chorus should hit harder. That's great. That's good advice. Then they were right.
Yeah.
When they're trying to reduce the amount of you in your art, that is never, ever the way.
Yeah.
And people will convince you to do that, and you'll convince yourself to do that. Because you'll say, well, I need to be more like Chappell Roan, or I need to be more like Sabrina Carpenter, or I need to be more like Post Malone because that's what's hitting. Those people are the most authentic versions of themselves. So figure out who you are. Just be really kind to that inner child. Nurture that thing. Be careful with your soul. You know what I mean? Like it's so precious, and art is such a sacred thing. Like don't commodify it. Let other people commodify it. Make your art really good, and then whatever. Make a bag selling. Put it in a Nike commercial. Do whatever you got to do. But
Yeah. Because there's constructive criticism, and then there's just criticism, and it's like,
got a
remember
fucking opinion.
remember which one is which, and remember that it's coming from someone who, and I say this again and again, it's a palette. Music
Yeah.
is a palette for your consumer, for the
Yeah.
consumers, and it might not be their cup of tea, so find someone else where it is, right?
Yeah.
Or again, when you're your authentic self, people are going to see that, and that's what they relate to. And then if you're trying to be somebody else and they're trying to relate to that, you're never going to keep up with that.
Yeah. Yeah. And not to say that you don't want to aim for fame, right? As a musician, like for better or worse, our society, we can get really into the etymology of why this exists specifically in music and not in other art forms, but the best thing our society knows for how to quantify a musician's success or failure is fame, right? So what I would ask to a young person is if I could read the future and tell you that you don't make it, would you still do this?
That's great. Actually, I kind of
If the answer is no, get the fuck out.
Yeah.
Go do something else. Or
it's funny because you said that, and my answer is yes. It's you said that, and like my brain was just like, yeah, I'd still continue. There's no stopping.
Yeah, it's funny. Like I've had like a mixed career. I'm like more successful than some people and a lot less successful than some of my other friends, right? But I still deal, like, even as a person who's like made a career, been able to support themselves being a musician, right? I still get fucking like older, like baby boomers you'll talk to, or I'll go home for the families and be like, so you still doing the music thing? I can't wait to say that I knew him. I knew him before. It's like, okay, that's fine. I'm not going to bust your balls because I know you don't have any concept for it. But like, I'm doing the same thing I did. I'm doing this the same way I did it when I was 12. And if for some reason something I do blows up and I'm on the cover of Rolling Stone, I'll still be doing the same thing I was doing when I was 12. This is a practice. This is a lifestyle. If you're not in it because you love every second of it, there's easier ways to get famous.
Yeah.
There's way easier ways to get famous.
I love the don't forget me when you're famous, or the like
good, okay. Best of intentions, whatever.
Yeah. I feel like some people just don't know what to say too.
Well, it's funny. It's like I have friends that are like for real famous, and I guarantee they go home and it's the same shit. You know? Yeah. Or like maybe they're in a niche and like they're huge, but like their fucking uncle doesn't doesn't know.
Yeah.
So, I think, just like if I could read the tea leaves and tell you that you don't get, Michael Jackson famous on this, like it doesn't work out. If that is like you're pulling the ripcord, then you should probably pull it. That'd be my advice if I was 18. Hold on to yourself, and make sure you really love it, because it is not the easiest profession in the world. It's not. It does not come with. I know this is how you know I'm in my 30s. It doesn't come with a 401k. You don't get health insurance in this. You know what I mean? You can like sometimes, but like most musicians, even that I know that are in like some of the top touring positions, they don't have health insurance through the artist. They don't have a 401k.
This episode is brought to you by Jack Brown's Germantown. Nothing like the perfect combination of beer and burgers. With one of the largest selection of beers and unique burgers to try, you'll never be disappointed.
I think it's always important to remember that, like, it sounds so stupid. You are going to die one day. Like, what's the most important thing in your life? Oh, it's your music? Yeah. Okay, well, don't forget. Yeah. I actually would love to touch base on, so you have like a lot of friends obviously in the industry, some doing really, really well and touring or on tour with people. How does it feel like when you get to like see their shows and see your friends succeeding and get to be like, yeah, we're friends, but I get to be a fan too. Yeah, I mean, it's just the coolest thing in the world. Like, I'm not going to name drop, but we saw some of my friends at Bonnaroo last year, and you know, you saw me geeking the fuck out in the crowd because a lot of my musician friends, we may work together on, you know, like records, and then you don't see them in front of 50,000 people, and you're just working on some shit, and
Yeah.
so it's fun to see the 100 foot tall versions of your friends, you know, just channeling the universe and being the biggest version of that soul. It's the best. I think, well, again, to kind of sort of recontextualize the fame within the context of music. Sure, it's fun to go see some of my friends who are like, you know, doing big stuff, but it's also just, I feel like so blessed to know so many incredible musicians who, you know, some are doing better than others, but it's just like, I think part of it was like getting to go to Berkeley and that network of people sort of like growing over the last, you know, 10 years.
I think that's what I also love about the people in this industry is a lot of it, not always, some of it's very competition wise, but like a lot of it is when your friends are succeeding and you get to support them,
Yeah.
you know that they'll support you. And that's such a beautiful part
Yeah.
of music.
Yeah. This isn't really like a name drop thing. I mean, and Jordan won't give a shit, but my buddy Jordan Rose, who plays drums for Maggie Rogers, I went and saw him. I think I saw them 4 times last year, just because I was just like, anytime he was around, if he was in Nashville or we saw him at Bonnaroo, he's also just like fucking so good at drums. So it's fun to go see it. Yeah, I love cheerleading on my friends. I see him anytime I can. If they're anywhere around, I'll go see the show, even though I've seen the show. I've seen this tour 4 times, you know, in the last year. If he was here next week, I'd go back and see it because, yeah, I just love this shit. I feel like it's really fun to, the community like inspires you. I think it's important to like if you're an artist, to be surrounded by other artists and not only support, but just like, I don't know, like it's a positive feedback loop. And drummers, I think, are really good about that. Like we all have each other's back. We're solid people. There's something about just that instrument that like, you know, we're never competitive with each other in that way. Jordan's a great example of like somebody who we had years ago when we were both living in New York. I think he's still in New York, but like we were trading off gigs on stuff, you know. And I remember even at a young age being like, yeah, I got Jordan on this, and I'll be like, oh, great, can I come? That's gonna sound so good.
Yeah.
Like it was never like, oh, I lost the gig. It was
Yeah.
like, no, like Jordan's not gonna be around on the next one. I'll get the next one. I'm gonna be around, Jordan, you know. Just yeah, support people. But that was a long answer to your very short question of, yeah, I love
No.
my friends.
Yeah. No, I thought that was great.
I love my friends.
Do you ever like, because sometimes I feel like I do this, maybe other people do it as well, but as a drummer, when you go to concerts and not your friends, like not your friends, but like when you go to
Yeah.
concerts and you do you ever just like just go straight to the drummer and kind of not critique them, but
Yeah.
like kind of
Yeah.
like kind of be like,
You know
oh,
what's
like I would have
weird?
done something, or I don't know, like
I didn't I swear to God, I didn't hear anything but the drums until like Berkeley. I heard the other instruments, but when I was listening to music, it's so weird how much I didn't hear. And I know it now because now I know how to play everything else.
yeah.
So I'll listen to a guitar part. I didn't care about a guitar part until I was about 19 or 20.
But it was kind of just like
The drums.
yeah, I've like everything else was blinders and you would just go straight.
Yeah, so some shows really good concerts I can like really tune out and not start analyzing parts or whatever a guitar player is doing or a drummer, or like if something's out of tune. Most of the time I'm in that, just because that is one sacrifice you kind of make of working in music, is like,
Yep.
you're going to go to concerts, aren't going to just be the same experience, but
Oh, you analyze,
sometimes
yeah,
they
for
are.
sure.
Sometimes they are. We saw Chili Peppers at Bonnaroo. I was like so fucking locked in on John Frusciante and Flea, but fully having like a transcendent
Yeah.
experience, you know?
Especially when it's a great show and everything's going right, everything sounds right, when everything's running so smoothly and
Yeah, if stuff's not happening,
like,
if there's like a mixing issue or something, I can't get out of my head.
yeah,
If like the guitar is not on or whatever, you can't
something's
hear
too loud. So
something.
yeah, I'm just like, no, that's gonna
Yeah.
ruin it. But
it's fun
not all the time.
Not all the time. And I think even then, you know, being at a concert that you're maybe hyper analyzing too much is better than sitting at home.
Yeah.
I'm happy to be at even just like, I don't even care if it's that good. I love watching people play live music. I've loved it since I was a kid. It was like this, yeah, just bug to the light for sure on that. So
I love live music. I feel like
yeah,
it's and I just feel like it really shows the way that they originally wrote it, the way that they want it to be heard. Because sometimes do feel like the tracks don't always reflect that. Not all the time,
no, I know
but
what you're saying.
yeah, there's been
I think
times
everybody
where
else
like I
does too.
hear
Yeah,
where I hear a band and I'm like, I didn't like this song when I heard it through just like the track,
yeah.
on the radio or whatever. But boy, do I like it when they play it live.
And maybe that comes back to the thing I was talking about earlier. Maybe someone convinced them to be less of themselves. Maybe that was a producer trying to fucking curtail their shit. And
Yeah, be like,
you
this
know,
sounds more commercial this way. But then they were like, well, we're not going to do that live. And they just stick to their authentic self live. And then you're like, oh, I wish you stuck with that in the
it's just
production.
like all the best records. Like one of my heroes, Steve Albini, just died this year, and I can't talk about it too much because it deeply makes me sad. Steve Albini, I won't get too into it. You can Google him. He's got an amazing life story. But uh, most famously, did a lot of the Nirvana stuff, and he did the stuff that Butch Vig didn't do. But Steve Albini had a really different just approach to producing a record, um, and he would never have tried to curtail Nirvana. I worship at the altar of that guy who's just always trying to get the most visceral version of an artist, and I think whether or not it does well, it's like I want you to look back and be like, wow, this single I did with Taylor was great because I've never felt that vulnerable and safe. So I think I'm willing to run the bet that I win in the long run by trying to do that, as opposed to trying to perfect everything to be the nicest little sandwich for anyone to eat.
Yeah.
If that's what you want to do, like I can make that record, but
Right.
like if I get a sense that you want to go in a different way, I'm always pulling that because what are we doing?
Right.
You know? I really take it so seriously. I think like our society's so fucked up right now. Our fucking country's falling apart. Like everything's a mess.
Yeah.
And the art isn't great, some of it.
Yeah.
I just think I think musicians have never had a moment in a really long time where it was less important that we make the best possible stuff. And I wish that record labels would get on board.
When you say the best, you mean almost like the most vulnerable, the most personal type stuff? Or do you mean just like the best as in.
Like how do you define what makes art good? Fuck, I don't know.
Yeah.
You know it. You
Yeah.
know it though when it's good.
When you hear it, yeah.
Yeah, and you know when it's bad. Just to put it in the vaguest terms possible, like instead of focusing all of your energy as an artist on maybe what trends are happening or what you think your label's going to like or what you think is going to be the most palatable, again, be undeniably great, whatever that is. Push yourself, get uncomfortable. Maybe your art's supposed to be abrasive. Maybe your art is supposed to be heartbreaking. Maybe your art is supposed to be like military grade joy. I don't know. Like, who knows? But find it, and you'll know it when it's good. And if you're, yeah, it's just follow your gut, follow your heart, man. But I just want to reiterate that, like, at a time when the world is this unstable, when society feels this unstable, I think we have more to do.
Yeah.
Not to be too fucking dramatic about it.
This episode is sponsored by Red Bicycle Germantown. It's more than a coffee shop. The staff feel like family, the food is out of this world, where you'll always get good coffee for a good morning.
What's your favorite moment you ever had being a singer, being creative? When is it you felt like you were completely aligned?
I don't know if I've really. I don't want to say I haven't had that because I feel like that's not true. I feel like there's still just so much more for me down the line with music that like I haven't maybe like hit my peak yet or whatever, but like I
Cool.
know that it's that I'm continuing to push to get there, and that I will, you know, it will come or it won't, but like there's no kind of stopping how much I enjoy doing music and being part of music. But I would say just like the little things of the first time I was in a studio recording my EP, that the
Yeah.
experience of it was just so fun. And I'm really happy the way that even though like I went into it kind of blindly, which I feel like I've done throughout this entire journey through this industry, is just going at it a little blindly. Um, but it's still cool to be like I did that and it was so much fun, and I loved working with the producer. I loved working with the band, that the studio band, and getting that experience and feeling like I got to learn from that experience and enjoy it at the same time.
Yeah.
Um, and writing songs with people, and also just writing myself and being proud of some of the things that I've written,
Yeah.
and continuing to know that I'm making more friends, and I'm making more people that I actually enjoy being with and talking music and doing things with, and making my first music video. That was so cool. And my second music video, my like those were just like amazing things that I'm super proud that even though I had no idea what I was doing, I did it.
Yeah.
I put my foot forward and I found the photographer, I found the videographer, I put together like the things that needed to be done for it, even though I really had no idea how to do it. And now I do.
Sounds like success to me. You know, maybe that's the answer. Maybe it's just like, you know, a success is a day-to-day thing. You know, I think it's like it's it is so much harder to be like not it's like on the big level of like some massive artist. They're doing less than they've ever done actually. You know, because they have a team of people and they're hiring a director and they're hiring a fucking blah blah blah, and they're doing administration, right? They're CEO of a company essentially. Everything you're talking about sounds like nothing but wins. That sounds like success to me, you know. Um,
And I feel like also with that, life success kind of even meshes in with your career success too.
sure.
I fully thought like I'm going to be so immersed in being in this career that I'm never going to find someone, because I just like that's how I always felt was nope, I want to fully focus on this, which means I won't really get to focus on somebody else in my life, or
Yeah.
like feel like that I could give them the time that is needed for a relationship.
It's hard.
But I I found someone and I fell in love. They're not even a musician, and I found my best friend.
Yeah.
And I think that's success for me, only because I always thought
How
I
could it
honestly
not
thought
be?
I might be alone my entire life.
I think everybody
And,
feels
you
that.
know, to be able to continue to do what I'm doing, like, you know, focus on music and stuff, and, you know, him be, you know, fully supportive of me and everything like that to me is success as
Mm-hmm.
well.
Yeah.
When you can merge your life and your passion and your love, that's freaking success itself.
Yeah. Yeah. Success is like balance more than anything else. I think this is why, you know, it's unfair for society to expect of musicians this sort of archetype of like this fame thing. Not every like that's not. I forget who it was, but who was it? Some sort of famous artist. Somebody asked them. It was like an interview from the '90s. What do you like about being famous? And the guy said, I don't like it. And they were like, what do you mean? And they go, name one good thing about it. You know, it's like, I don't know. I feel like more people need it. More musicians need it. You know what I mean? But not being able to have like a normal human interaction with a stranger for the rest of your life because they're doing weird projection shit at you the whole time because you're some person.
Yeah.
Not being able to have a human connection for the rest of your life. Like if you're famous enough, your life's awful. You get paid a lot of money, like whatever, but like everyone's like that's awful.
Yeah.
You know? So yeah. Well, this has been so nice. Come over and make music anytime.
Yes, absolutely. Oh my God. Soon. We need to work. I'm finally getting some things together. So
Make some songs.
all right. So that's going to kind of wrap things up. Thank you for coming on with me and shooting the shit with me. My name is Betty Reed, and this is Taylor Robinson. And if you want to find him, I will put all the social media. You can find him on Taylor on Drums.
If you want to, don't feel obligated.
I will have everything that y'all need if you guys want to connect. Thank you guys for tuning in and listening to us shoot the shit.